The message. The sunrise over Haven's Reach painted the colony domes in shades of amber and gold. Commander Elena Vasquez stood at the observation deck of the central hub, coffee in hand, watching the miners begin their morning shift. 243 souls called this remote outpost home. Farmers, engineers, teachers, children who had never seen Earth except in history lessons. This was humanity's promise made real. Peaceful expansion, cooperation, building something beautiful in the cold darkness of space. "Morning, Commander," said Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the colony's chief medical officer, joining her at the window. "Jacob's asking if he can stay up late tonight. Something about the meteor shower." Elena smiled. Yuki's 8-year-old son had become the colony's unofficial astronomer, dragging anyone who would listen to his telescope. "Tell him yes, but only if he finishes his mathematics assignment." "Deal." Yuki paused, her expression softening. "You know, Elena, 5 years ago I never imagined I'd be raising my son on a mining colony at the edge of human space. But looking at this, what we've built together, I wouldn't change a thing." "Neither would I," Elena replied. "This is what humanity should be. Not warfare, not competition. Just people trying to build a future." She had no way of knowing those would be among the last peaceful words she would ever speak. The alarm started screaming at 0847 hours. "Commander Vasquez to the command center. Multiple contacts emerging from quantum space. Unknown configuration." Elena's coffee hit the floor as she ran. The command center erupted in controlled chaos. Displays showing 6 massive vessels materializing impossibly close to the colony. They were unlike anything in human databases. Angular, predatory, covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at too long. "Communications, hail them on all frequencies," Elena ordered, her heart hammering. "Let them know we're a civilian installation. No weapons, no threat." Lieutenant Park's hands flew across his console. "Transmitting on all standard channels, Commander." No response. They're powering weapons. "Shields up. Evacuate all personnel to the reinforced sections. Move. But Haven's Reach had been built for mining, not war. Their shields were designed to deflect micrometeorites, not military-grade weaponry. The first shot tore through the agricultural dome like tissue paper. Explosive decompression killed 17 people in seconds, including Dr. Chin, the botanist who had finally coaxed tomatoes to grow in the artificial soil. "Return fire," someone shouted. "We don't have weapons." Elena screamed back. "We're a civilian colony." The second shot vaporized the residential quarter. Yuki's house. Jacob's telescope. The school where children learned poetry and mathematics. All gone in a flash of superheated plasma. Elena's vision tunneled. This couldn't be happening. Not here. Not to her people. "Get everyone to the core," she commanded. "Seal the emergency bulkheads. Park, send out a distress signal, full spectrum, everything we have." "Already transmitting, Commander. But the nearest human ship is 3 days away. They're jamming our quantum communications." Another impact. The mining facilities erupted in flame. Through the chaos, Elena caught glimpses of the attackers on the external cameras. They moved with purpose, with precision. This wasn't a raid or a misunderstanding. This was extermination. "Why?" Lieutenant Park whispered, his face pale. "We never even met them before. Why would they do this?" Elena had no answer. She had spent her entire career believing that peaceful contact was possible, that humanity's commitment to diplomacy would keep them safe. She had been wrong. Terribly, catastrophically wrong. The colony shuddered as another section exploded. 50 people gone. Then 70. The attackers were methodical, destroying Haven's Reach piece by piece, giving the colonists just enough time to feel the terror, to understand that no help was coming. "Commander, they're hailing us." Park's voice cracked. "Audio only." Elena stabbed the response button. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of Haven's Reach. We are a civilian installation. We have families here, children. Why are you attacking us?" The voice that responded was synthesized, emotionless. "You are human. You expand. You build. You spread your weakness across the stars. We are Kethvari. We do not permit vermin to flourish near our borders. This is your warning. Tell your kind, stay away or share this colony's fate." "Warning?" Elena's voice turned to steel. "You murdered innocent people as a warning?" "Yes. We have delivered our message. Farewell, human." The transmission cut. Elena watched on her screens as the Kethvari vessels began to withdraw, their work nearly complete. Of the 243 people who had watched the sunrise that morning, Fewer than 30 remained alive, huddled in the reinforced core of the station. "They're leaving," Park said, disbelief in his voice. "They're just leaving us to die." Elena looked at the structural integrity readings. The core would hold for maybe an hour. Maybe. The distress beacon was still transmitting, but help was days away. Her people, the miners, the teachers, the families who had trusted her to keep them safe, were going to die in the cold vacuum of space. Unless she could give their deaths meaning. "Park, reroute all remaining power to communications. I don't care if it kills life support. I need to send one more transmission." "Commander?" "Do it." "That's an order." She stumbled to the communication station, her ribs screaming where falling debris had caught her. Around her, the station groaned and twisted. She could hear crying from the emergency shelter below. Children who didn't understand why the world was ending. Elena activated every transmitter Haven's Reach possessed, amplified by the colony's remaining power core. This message would burn through the Kethvari jamming. This message would reach Earth. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of Haven's Reach," she began, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "If you're receiving this, our colony has been destroyed by an alien force calling themselves the Kethvari. They attacked without warning, without provocation. They killed our people, our families, as a warning to humanity. They called us weak. They called us vermin." The station shook. Atmosphere vented somewhere close by. "They wanted to break our spirit. They wanted us to fear them, to stay hidden, to give up our dreams of the stars. They made a mistake." Elena's voice grew stronger. "We came to Haven's Reach to build, not to conquer. We came in peace. We raised our children here. We grew gardens in alien soil. We looked up at stars we'd never seen and felt wonder, not fear." Another impact. The screens went dark one by one. "To Earth, to Mars, to every human habitat in the system. We are dying here, but our dream doesn't die with us. Remember us. Remember what we built, what we believed in. And remember this." Elena's hands gripped the console. "When someone kills your family, when they murder your children to make a point, you don't cower. You don't hide. You rise." The core's structural integrity alarm reached a crescendo. Make them remember what they awakened. Make them regret they ever learned humanity's name. Not for revenge, for justice. For every child who died today. For everyone who ever dared to dream of peace. Elena's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more weight than a shout. "We wanted to be their neighbors. They turned us into their nightmare. Show them what happens when humanity stops being gentle. Make them understand," she breathed, "that we are not weak. We are kind. And they should have prayed we stayed that way." The transmission cut as the core finally gave way. Commander Elena Vasquez died with her people, in the colony they had built together, under the stars they had loved. But her message lived. It streaked across the void at light speed, punching through every relay, every receiver, every communications hub in human space. Within 6 hours it reached Earth. Within 12, every human being in the solar system had heard Elena Vasquez's final words. The reaction was not what the Kethvari had anticipated. In Geneva, the World Council convened an emergency session. Every delegate arrived in silence. They listened to the message together. When it finished, the silence continued for a full minute. Then General Marcus Chin of the United Earth Defense Force stood. He was 73 years old, gray-haired, with eyes that had seen 2 world wars before humanity unified. He had spent 40 years overseeing a project so classified that most governments didn't know it existed. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said quietly, "it's time." Around the world, encrypted messages began to transmit. In underground facilities on Luna, massive hangar doors opened for the first time in 30 years. On Mars, beneath the Valles Marineris, shipyards hummed to life. In the asteroid belt, hidden stations activated their construction bays. Humanity had learned from its own bloody history. After the Third World War nearly destroyed Earth, the unified government had made a decision. Never again would humanity be caught unprepared. While the public saw peaceful exploration and civilian colonies, the Shadow Protocol had been building in secret, preparing for the day when humanity's outstretched hand of friendship was slapped away. That day had come. In Tokyo, a high school mathematics teacher named James Rivera received an encrypted message. He read it, closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Then he opened his closet and retrieved a uniform he hadn't worn in 15 years. Colonel James Rivera reported for duty at 0600 hours the next morning. In Lagos, a factory worker named Sarah Okonkwo kissed her grandmother goodbye and activated a quantum communicator hidden in her apartment. "This is Captain Okonkwo," she said. requesting immediate transport to Luna Base 3. Across Earth, across Mars, across every human habitat, the same scene repeated thousands of times. Teachers, farmers, artists, engineers, all revealing what they truly were. What they had always been beneath the peaceful facades. Soldiers, warriors, protectors waiting for the call they prayed would never come. General Chin stood in the command center beneath Geneva, watching the reports flood in. 50,000 sleeper agents activating. Hidden shipyards revealing themselves. Weapons systems that officially didn't exist powering up. Sir, his aide asked quietly, are we really doing this? Going to war with an alien empire we know nothing about? Chin looked at the young lieutenant. They didn't give us a choice. They killed our people. They murdered children to send a message. He turned back to the displays showing humanity's hidden fleet emerging from the shadows. Now we send them one. We're not your victims. We're not your warning. We're your reckoning. On Luna, the first of the great warships powered up. The Defiant Hope, 3 kilometers of advanced human engineering, built in secret over decades. Its captain, Sarah Okonkwo, walked onto the bridge and looked at her crew. Former civilians, every one of them. People who had lived quiet lives while preparing for this moment. They wanted to break us, she told them. Instead, they woke us up. Let's show them what humanity looks like when we stop pretending to be harmless. In orbit, memorial services were held for Haven's Reach. Every ship, every station broadcast the names of the dead. 243 names. 243 reasons. The Kethvari had expected fear. They got fury. They had expected submission. They got solidarity. They had wanted to deliver a warning. Instead, they had issued an invitation. To war. The gathering storm. The Shadow Fleet emerged like a revelation. For 3 days, the civilian population of Earth watched their screens in stunned silence as massive warships rose from facilities they never knew existed. The shipyards on Luna's far side had been dismissed as geological research stations for 40 years. The vast underground complexes in Mars's Valles Marineris were supposed to be terraforming equipment warehouses. The mining platforms scattered through the asteroid belt were nothing of the sort. They were humanity's insurance policy. And the premium had just come due. Captain Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Defiant Hope, watching the construction crews complete the final systems checks. 3 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with weapons humanity had developed in secret, kinetic accelerators that could punch through small moons, quantum disruption torpedoes, point defense grids that could track 1,000 targets simultaneously. The ship was beautiful and terrible, a cathedral of war built by people who prayed they'd never need to use it. Captain, her executive officer, Commander Liu, approached with a data pad. Final crew manifest. 1,200 personnel all accounted for. Most of them reported from civilian cover within 18 hours. Sarah nodded, scanning the names. Dr. Amara Osei, Chief Medical Officer, had been working as a pediatrician in Accra. Lieutenant Yuri Volkov, Chief Engineer, had spent a decade as a university professor teaching quantum mechanics. Her tactical officer, Chin Wei, had been a celebrated restaurant owner in Beijing. How many of them have families? She asked quietly. 83%, ma'am. All dependents have been relocated to secure facilities. Sarah closed her eyes. Every person on this ship was leaving someone behind. Parents, children, lovers, all sacrificing their quiet lives because Haven's Reach needed to mean something. Because Elena Vasquez's last words demanded an answer. Captain Okonkwo. General Marcus Chen's face appeared on her personal comm, status report. Defiant Hope ready for deployment, sir. Crew at 98% efficiency. We'll hit 100 by the time we clear Luna's orbit. Good. Chen's lined face showed the weight of 40 years of secret preparation. I'm uploading the complete tactical package. Sarah? He paused, using her first name, a rarity. I trained you for 15 years for a day I prayed would never come. I'm sorry it did. So am I, sir. But we're ready. I know you are. That's why you're commanding the Vanguard. 63 ships under your direct command. Another 200 in the main assault group. 300 more for defensive pickets and logistics. We built an armada in the shadows, Sarah. Now we use it. The scale still staggered her. Over 500 warships, thousands of support craft, hundreds of thousands of personnel, all hidden from the public, from the media, from the very concept of what humanity had become. The Shadow Protocol had consumed resources that could have built entire colonies. But now, looking at the Kethvari's casual genocide, Sarah understood why. Peace required preparation for war. What about the other colonial powers? She asked. The Europa Collective, the Titan Concordat, are they contributing? Everyone's contributing. This isn't Earth versus the Kethvari. This is humanity united for the first time since the Unification Wars. The Collective is providing intelligence and specialized tech. The Concordat is supplying fuel and logistics. Even the Martian independence movement has pledged full support. Chin smiled grimly. Turns out nothing unites humans like an external threat. The Kethvari wanted to divide us with fear. They gave us a common cause instead. Sarah felt something loosen in her chest. Not all of humanity's tribal instincts were destructive. Sometimes, when threatened, humans didn't fracture, they fused. Rules of engagement, sir? Protect human colonies and shipping. Destroy Kethvari military assets. Minimize civilian casualties on all sides. We're not them, Sarah. We don't murder children to make points. Chen's voice hardened. But make no mistake. We're not negotiating. We're not compromising. We're teaching them a lesson that will echo through the galaxy for 1,000 years. You don't touch our people. Understood, sir. The transmission ended. Sarah stood alone on her bridge, looking out at the fleet assembling around her flagship. Every ship bore a name chosen with care. Defiant hope. Unwavering justice. Quiet fury. Remembered light. Names that honored what humanity aspired to be, even in war. Captain, Commander Lu returned. We're receiving a transmission from Earth. Being broadcast on all channels. Public. Sarah's screen switched to show a massive auditorium, the World Council chamber in Geneva. Every seat filled. Every delegate present. And at the podium, General Marcus Chin, no longer in shadow, speaking to all of humanity for the first time. Citizens of Earth, Mars, Europa, Titan, and every human habitat, Chin began, his voice carrying across billions of receivers. 3 days ago, the colony of Haven's Reach was destroyed. 243 of our people were murdered without warning, without mercy by an alien power called the Kethvari. Their final message from Commander Elena Vasquez called us to remember them, to honor them, and to ensure their sacrifice meant something. The chamber was silent. Chin continued. For 40 years, since the end of the Unification Wars, I have overseen a program called the Shadow Protocol. While you built colonies and pursued peaceful exploration, we built something else. A defense force prepared for the possibility that the universe might not embrace our peace with open arms. We hoped we were wrong. We prayed our work would never be needed. Images began appearing on screens behind him. The Luna shipyards. The Mars facilities. Ship after ship emerging from concealment. We were not wrong. But we were ready. Gasps rippled through the chamber, through living rooms and common areas across human space. The secret was revealed. The shadows made light. Some of you will feel betrayed, Chin acknowledged. You will ask why resources went to weapons instead of schools, why scientists developed military technology instead of medical cures, why we prepared for war while preaching peace. He paused. The answer is simple, because we loved you. Because we wanted you to have the luxury of believing in peace, while we bore the burden of preparing for war. Because we would rather be called paranoid and militaristic than see another Haven's Reach burn. Sarah watched her crew's reactions. Some nodded. Others looked troubled. All of them understood the weight of what they'd been asked to carry. Today the Shadow Protocol ends, Chin declared. Not because we failed, but because we succeeded in our true mission, keeping humanity safe long enough to grow, to thrive, to become worthy of the stars. Now we face our first real test. The Kethvari believe we are weak. They believe one massacre will send us cowering back to our home system. They are about to learn how wrong they are. The general's face hardened into something ancient and implacable. We are dispatching a fleet of over 500 warships to Kethvari space. Not to conquer. Not to colonize. But to ensure with absolute certainty that no alien power will ever again mistake our kindness for weakness, our peace for cowardice, our restraint for inability. He leaned forward. We wanted to be the galaxy's friends. The Kethvari have made us its warriors instead. May whatever gods they pray to have mercy on them, because we will offer only justice. The transmission ended. Across human space, people sat in silence, processing the revelation. Then, slowly, a sound began to build. Not cheers, this was too solemn for celebration. But a low, rumbling acknowledgement. A recognition that sometimes peace required steel beneath the velvet. On the defiant hope, Sarah's calm exploded with requests. Every news service, every independent journalist wanted interviews, statements, reactions to the revealed fleet. Communications blackout on all public channels, she ordered. We're not here for publicity. We're here to work. Below decks, in the vast barracks that housed the Marine contingent, Colonel James Rivera addressed his troops. He'd been a teacher until 3 days ago, a good one who taught calculus to teenagers who thought they'd never use it. Now he wore combat armor and commanded 3,000 soldiers who'd lived similar double lives. Most of you know me from the training simulations, he began. But you don't know why I volunteered for the Shadow Protocol 20 years ago. I was a young lieutenant during the last days of the Unification Wars. I saw what humans do to each other when we forget we're all the same species. I saw cities burn. I saw children starving in the rubble. He paused, meeting their eyes. When the wars ended, when we finally unified, I made myself a promise. Never again would I stand by while people suffered. Never again would I be unprepared to protect the innocent. The Shadow Protocol gave me that chance, to train, to prepare, to be ready for the day when someone threatened our people. Rivera's voice grew quiet. That day is here. The Kethri killed our families. Now we make them understand what that means. The Marines roared approval. These were not teenagers playing at war. They were adults who'd spent years, decades in some cases, training for combat they hoped would never come. Now that it had, they were ready. In the engineering sections, Dr. Yuri Volkov, no longer a professor, briefed his team on the quantum drive systems. The Kethri use conventional FTL, he explained, holographic schematics floating around him. Predictable entry and exit points, limited tactical flexibility. Our quantum drives allow instantaneous positioning anywhere within a light-year radius. We can appear, strike, and vanish before they react. It's not just a technological advantage, it's a paradigm shift in space warfare. Will it be enough? A young engineer asked. We've never fought them before. We don't know their capabilities. No, Volkov admitted. We don't. But they don't know ours either. And we have something they clearly lack: imagination. They think in straight lines, in predictable hierarchies. Humans think in spirals, in tangents, in creative chaos. That's our edge. That's how we win. Throughout the fleet, similar scenes played out. Doctors prepared trauma bays for casualties they prayed wouldn't come. Pilots ran simulations and advanced fighters built with technology the public didn't know existed. Intelligence officers analyzed every scrap of data from Haven's Reach's final minutes, building profiles of Kethri tactics and weaknesses. And through it all, memorial services continued. Haven's Reach was not forgotten. Every ship held ceremonies. Every commander read the names. 243 reasons. 243 reminders of what happened when humanity let its guard down. On the 6th day after the massacre, General Chin transmitted the final deployment orders. The fleet would divide into 3 task forces. Task Force Vanguard, under Captain Okonkwo, would strike directly at Kethri military installations near the border. Task Force Hammer, commanded by Admiral Zhang Wei, would engage the main Kethri fleet. Task Force Shield would remain in human space, protecting colonies from retaliation. This is not a war of conquest, Chen's orders stated. This is a war of instruction. We will teach the Kethri and any other species watching that humanity protects its own. We will demonstrate that our preference for peace does not indicate an inability to wage war. And we will ensure that Haven's Reach is remembered not as our weakness, but as our awakening. Sarah Okonkwo stood at her ready room window, watching Earth rotate below. Somewhere down there, her grandmother prayed for her safe return. Somewhere, parents were kissing children goodbye as they boarded troop transports. Somewhere, partners were holding each other, wondering if they'd ever meet again. War demanded sacrifice. Always had. Always would. But this war, this wasn't aggression. This wasn't empire building or resource grabbing or any of the stupid, brutal reasons humans had fought each other for millennia. This was protection. This was justice. This was humanity saying with one unified voice, you cannot murder us without consequence. Captain, Commander Lu's voice broke her reverie. All ships report ready for quantum transition. The fleet awaits your order. Sarah took a deep breath. Beyond her window, 500 warships hung in formation, humanity's hammer, forged in secret, ready to fall. Beyond them, stars wheeled in eternal patterns, indifferent to the dramas playing out beneath them. But humans weren't indifferent. Humans cared. Humans remembered. And humans protected their own. Signal all ships, she commanded. Light up the quantum drives. Plot course for Kethri space. She paused, then added the phrase that had become the fleet's unofficial motto. For Haven's Reach. For humanity. Make them remember what they awakened. Across the fleet, quantum drives hummed to life, distorting space itself. One by one the ships vanished, not fleeing but advancing. Moving faster than light toward an enemy that had learned humanity's location. Now humanity would teach them something in return. The Kethvari had wanted to send a message. They were about to receive one. Written in fire and steel, spoken in the language of war, carrying a simple truth that would echo through the galaxy. We are human. We are kind. We are peaceful. Pray we stay that way. When humanity rises. The Kethvari High Command received the first reports with something approaching amusement. A human fleet? War leader Kethvan examined the tactical display with 3 of his 4 eyes. How large? Preliminary scans detect 500 ships, Commander. Various classifications, emerging from quantum space at multiple coordinates along our border. Kethvan's amusement faded. 500? Impossible. Human space has 36 survey vessels and twice that in cargo haulers. Our intelligence is comprehensive. Nevertheless, Commander, they're here. And there. The tactical officer paused. They're broadcasting a message. Play it. The image that appeared showed an elderly human male in military uniform. General Marcus Chin spoke without anger, without emotion, as if delivering a weather report. Attention Kethvari High Command. I am General Marcus Chin of the United Earth Defense Force. 6 days ago, you destroyed the colony of Haven's Reach, killing 243 civilians including children. You claimed this was a warning to humanity to stay away from your borders. Chen's expression didn't change. We received your message. Here is our reply. The transmission ended. 30 seconds later, the human fleet opened fire. Captain Sarah Okonkwo watched the tactical display from the bridge of the Defiant Hope as her task force engaged the Kethvari border stations. The aliens had built impressive fortifications, orbital weapons platforms, defensive satellites, minefields that would have devastated a conventional assault. But humanity didn't fight conventionally. Quantum jump complete, Commander Lu reported. We're inside their defensive perimeter. They never saw us coming. The Kethvari stations were designed to repel attacks from predictable vectors, from ships that traveled through normal space using conventional FTL. They were prepared for enemies that announced themselves, that followed the established rules of warfare. Humanity wrote new rules. All ships fire at will. Priority targets, weapons platforms and communication relays. Avoid the civilian habitat stations. We're not here to massacre innocents. The Defiant Hope's main cannon spoke. Kinetic rounds accelerated to 98% of light speed struck the Kethvari weapons platform designated Target Alpha. The station didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the kinetic energy of rounds moving at relativistic speeds. Across the engagement zone, the pattern repeated. Human ships appeared without warning, struck with precision, and vanished before the Kethvari could coordinate a response. It wasn't a battle, it was a demonstration. A lesson in what happened when a species that had perfected war against itself turned that expertise outward. Enemy ships approaching, Lu called out. 47 Kethvari cruisers, standard battle formation. Sarah studied the approaching fleet. The Kethvari moved in rigid geometric patterns, predictable and efficient. They communicated through hierarchical command structures, waiting for orders from central authority. It was the product of a civilization that valued order and control. Humanity had learned to thrive in chaos. Deploy the fighters. Tactical pattern Omega 7. Let's show them what decentralized warfare looks like. 300 human fighters launched from the Defiant Hope and her sister ships. Unlike the Kethvari, human pilots didn't wait for orders. They improvised, adapted, exploited opportunities as they emerged. Each pilot was empowered to make tactical decisions, to respond to the fluid dynamics of combat without checking with command. The Kethvari fleet found itself fighting not one coordinated enemy, but 300 independent threats, each moving unpredictably, each responding to different priorities. Their targeting systems, designed to track formations and predict movement patterns, struggled to keep up with the chaotic human attack. Enemy flagship launching heavy ordnance, Lu reported. Tracking, plasma warheads high yield. Impact in 40 seconds. Point defense grid active. Redirect fighter wing theta to intercept. The human defensive systems were multi-layered, automated point defense for close threats, fighters for mid-range interception, electronic warfare to confuse targeting systems. The Kethvari plasma warheads, impressive as they were, never reached their targets. Most were shot down. The rest were decoyed away by false sensor signatures. But the humans' return fire was uncompromising. Sarah watched Target Bravo, a Kethvari cruiser, take 3 direct hits from quantum disruption torpedoes. The weapons didn't just destroy the ship, they briefly unraveled the fundamental forces holding its atoms together. The cruiser simply stopped being. One moment a vessel of war, the next an expanding cloud of subatomic particles. "Captain," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Kethvari flagship. Audio only. Put it through." The same synthesized voice that had condemned Haven's Reach now carried a different tone. Uncertainty. Fear. "Human vessels, this is Fleet Commander Tefrak. We did not anticipate, your forces were reported as minimal. Our intelligence was wrong," Sarah interrupted. "You see, Commander, we're good at hiding things. We're very, very good at it. While you were watching our merchant ships and survey vessels, we were building this." She gestured to her tactical display showing the overwhelming human advantage. "Did you think we'd forgotten how to make war? We wrote the book on it. Spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. We just decided to stop. That doesn't mean we forgot how. This cannot stand. The Kethvari Empire will not tolerate." "The Kethvari Empire," Sarah said coldly, "will tolerate whatever we tell it to tolerate. You murdered children to send a message. Now we're replying. Pull your forces back from all human borders. Transmit the coordinates of your homeworld and primary military installations. Do it in the next 60 seconds or we'll find them ourselves and you won't like how we knock on doors." Silence. Then quietly, "If we refuse?" Sarah glanced at Commander Liu, who nodded. The tactical officer brought up a display showing 3 Kethvari colony worlds within range of the human fleet. "Then we'll do to your colonies what you did to ours. And unlike you, Commander, we'll give you a choice first. That's the difference between humans and Kethvari. We prefer mercy. But we're fully capable of justice." The transmission cut. 30 seconds later, a data package arrived containing everything Sarah had demanded. "Helm," she ordered, "relay these coordinates to General Chen. Prepare the fleet for quantum jump to Kethvar Prime. It's time to talk to the people in charge." Across Kethvari space, similar scenes repeated. Admiral Zhang Wei's Hammer Task Force engaged the main Kethvari battle fleet in the Tefkor system. The Kethvari had numerical superiority, nearly 300 ships to humanity's 200. It didn't matter. The human fleet fought with a coordinated flexibility the Kethvari couldn't match. Ships operated in independent groups, supporting each other without central control. When one group needed assistance, nearby units responded without waiting for orders. When tactical opportunities emerged, captains seized them instantly. The Kethvari, for all their military might, fought like they'd never encountered an enemy capable of innovation. They relied on proven tactics, established doctrines, rigid hierarchies. Against a predictable enemy it would have worked perfectly. Against humans, creative, adaptable, willing to try insane tactics just to see what happened, it was a disaster. "Sir," Admiral Zhang's tactical officer reported, "the Kethvari are pulling back. They're retreating." Zhang watched the enemy fleet withdraw in surprisingly good order. Professional soldiers, at least. They knew when they were beaten. "Don't pursue," he ordered. "Signal all ships, hold position. We're not here to chase them to extinction. We're here to make a point." On Mars, Colonel James Rivera led the ground assault on a Kethvari military installation that intelligence suggested housed their strategic command center. 3,000 Marines, equipped with powered armor and weapons that the public didn't know existed, dropped from orbit in stealth pods. The Kethvari defenders fought hard. Rivera had to respect that. They didn't flee, didn't surrender easily. They defended their post with determination. But they'd never fought humans in close combat. And humans, for all their talk of peace and civilization, were descended from persistence hunters who chased prey to exhaustion across African plains, from warriors who'd invented 10,000 ways to kill before breakfast. Rivera's Marines moved through the installation like ghosts, appearing, striking, vanishing. They used the environment, adapted to surprises, covered each other with practiced ease. The Kethvari defenders, for all their training, kept trying to set up strong points and hold ground. Humans didn't hold ground. Humans flowed like water, finding weaknesses, exploiting them, moving before the enemy could respond. The installation fell in 6 hours. Not destroyed, captured. Rivera made sure civilian staff were protected, wounded Kethvari received medical treatment, and prisoners were handled with the dignity the Geneva Convention required. "Sir," one of his lieutenants asked, watching medics treat injured Kethvari soldiers, "why are we helping them?" "After what they did." Rivera looked at the young officer. "Because we're not them, Lieutenant. They murder civilians to make points. We protect prisoners because that's what civilized beings do. The moment we start acting like them, they've won something more important than any battle. The lieutenant nodded slowly, understanding. That was the real lesson humanity was teaching. Not just that they could fight, any species could fight, but that they could fight ferociously while still maintaining their principles, still drawing lines they wouldn't cross. It was a lesson the Kethvari desperately needed to learn. On the 8th day of the war, the human fleet arrived at Kethvar Prime, the Kethvari homeworld. 500 warships materialized in orbit around a planet of 4 billion souls. The defensive fleet scrambled. Planetary shields activated. Weapons platforms powered up. General Marcus Chin transmitted directly to the Kethvari High Council, his image appearing on every screen across their world. People of Kethvar, he began, 8 days ago your military attacked a human colony. They killed 243 people. Men, women, children, without warning, without mercy. They called it a message. They wanted to frighten us, to make us cower. Chin paused, letting his words sink in. As you can see, we are not frightened. We are not cowering. We are here, in orbit around your homeworld, with enough firepower to turn your planet into a memorial. But we won't do that. Do you know why? Across Kethvar Prime, billions watched and waited. Because we're not you. We don't murder civilians to make points. We don't destroy worlds because we're angry. We came here to deliver a message of our own. Humanity will not be threatened. We will not be intimidated. And we will not tolerate attacks on our people. Chen's expression hardened. Your military is defeated. Your fleets are scattered. Your installations are captured or destroyed. You can continue fighting and we will continue winning, until there's nothing left of your empire. Or, he leaned forward, you can listen. You can learn. You can understand that the galaxy has room for many species, but no room for casual genocide. A new transmission came through, the Kethvari High Council requesting negotiations. The talks lasted 3 days. The Kethvari, facing the reality of human military superiority, had little leverage. General Chen's terms were clear. Full reparations for Haven's Reach, including support for the families of the deceased. Immediate withdrawal from all human border regions. Reduction of Kethvari military forces, with human observers to ensure compliance. Establishment of a demilitarized zone. And most importantly, a formal treaty recognizing human sovereignty and the consequences of violating it. You wanted us to fear you, Chin told the Kethvari negotiators. Instead, you've taught the galaxy to respect us. You've shown every species watching that humanity, when threatened, doesn't collapse. We unite. We rise. And we win. The Kethvari High Counselor, an ancient being with scars from a dozen conflicts, looked at Chen with something approaching respect. We thought you were weak because you valued peace. We see now that you valued peace because you understood the cost of war. Yes, Chen agreed. We know exactly what war cost. We've paid that price for thousands of years. That's why we tried so hard to avoid it. But when you force us to pay it again, he met the counselor's eyes, we make sure you understand why it's a price no one should want to pay. The treaty was signed. The human fleet remained in orbit for another week, a silent reminder of the new reality. Then, in groups, they began the journey home. Captain Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Defiant Hope, watching Kethvar Prime recede. They'd lost 63 ships in the conflict. 3,000 human lives. Each one a tragedy. Each one remembered. But Haven's Reach had been avenged. The Kethvari had learned. And humanity had announced to the galaxy that they were no longer the newcomers, the unknowns, the species that could be pushed around. Captain, Commander Lu said quietly, there's a transmission coming through. It's from Haven's Reach. Sarah's heart clenched. That's impossible. The colony was destroyed. Not the colony, ma'am. The beacon. The emergency beacon has been transmitting Commander Vasquez's final message on repeat. It's still out there, still broadcasting. They listened together as Elena Vasquez's voice echoed across the void one more time. Make them remember what they awakened. We did, Sarah whispered. Elena, we did. The fleet returned to Earth 3 weeks after departing. They weren't greeted with parades or celebrations. This had been a necessity, not a triumph. But as the ships settled into orbit, as crews disembarked and returned to families, there was a sense of profound change. Humanity had passed a test it never wanted to take. They'd proven they could fight without losing their principles. They'd shown strength without becoming monsters. They'd delivered justice without resorting to vengeance. General Marcus Chin, standing in the same Geneva chamber where he'd revealed the Shadow Protocol, addressed humanity one final time. We went to war to protect our people, he said. We succeeded. The Kethvari have agreed to terms that ensure this will never happen again. But more importantly, we've sent a message to every species in the galaxy. Humanity is ready to take its place among the stars. Not as conquerors. Not as victims. But as equals who will not tolerate aggression against our own. He paused, looking tired. 73 years old, and he'd spent 40 of them preparing for a war he hoped would never come. The Shadow Protocol is ended. We no longer need to hide our strength. But we also don't need to display it constantly. Let the galaxy remember Haven's reach. Let them remember what happened when someone tested humanity's resolve. Let that memory keep the peace so we never have to do this again. On Luna, a memorial was constructed. 243 names, carved in stone that would outlast empires. Haven's Reach Colony, it read. They came in peace. They died for warning. They were avenged. And beneath those words, a simple phrase that became humanity's unofficial motto among the stars. We are kind. Pray we stay that way. Years later, when new species encountered humanity, they found a civilization that valued peace, that sought cooperation, that preferred diplomacy to conflict. But they also found something else. A quiet certainty, a confidence that came from knowing exactly what they were capable of if pushed too far. The Kethvari Treaty became the template for all human-alien relations. Respect earned through demonstrated capability. Peace maintained through prepared strength. Kindness backed by the certain knowledge of consequences. Haven's Reach was never forgotten. Every new colony carried its story. Every human child learned Elena Vasquez's name. Every ship in human space bore a memorial plaque. And when aliens asked why humanity seemed so peaceful yet so ready for war, humans had a simple answer. We learned from our own history. We know what we're capable of. We know the darkness we're capable of embracing. That's precisely why we choose the light instead. But if you force us to remember old lessons, if you mistake our kindness for weakness, we'll teach you why we worked so hard to become better than we were. We're not warriors pretending to be peaceful. We're peacemakers who remember how to wage war. There's a difference. A crucial one. Test us if you must. But remember Haven's Reach. Remember what happened when someone did. The galaxy remembered. And humanity, united, vigilant, kind but never naive, continued reaching for the stars. Not as conquerors but as guardians. Not seeking war but ready for it. Not looking for enemies but prepared to protect their own. The Kethvari had wanted to send a warning. Instead, they'd issued an awakening. And when humanity rose, the stars themselves took notice.